What's going on, everybody? My name is Aaron Letty. I am the head of coaching and training here at Results Driven. I thought it was really important to hop in and really cover a topic of what we're getting a ton of questions on, whether it's within our Facebook community, whether it's at a simple DM that somebody reached out to myself or one of the coaches here, and at our 2-day workshops as well. I thought it would be really cool to bring in Mr. Scott Hanis. Scott, you there?
I'm here. Thanks, Aaron, for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. So, Scott is a valuable asset to our team. Whenever it comes to anything with, HR, team building, team management, he's helped us over the years structure a lot of our, honestly, what we have here at Heels Homes and Results Driven out. And I wanted to bring him in for, two specific topics that we're seeing a lot in. Scott, I know one of the things we wanted to talk about was, how to establish culture in an organization. And then a common question that I'm getting a lot of is, when is it time to, go from the difference? And I shouldn't say it's really when do you have a W-2 employee versus a 1099 employee, and explaining the ins and outs between the two. Because that we do everything with W-2, but I get the question all the time. So I thought it'd be really important just to bring you in and, just give us the full rundown on both of those. So I want to give you the floor.
Sounds great. Thanks so much for having me, Aaron. Thank you, everybody, for that's out there watching. As Aaron said, my name is Scott Hanis. I own a company called Fortitude HR Solutions. We do HR consulting, business consulting, and we do a lot of recruiting throughout the United States. So I'm happy to be here and hoping I can drop a lot of knowledge to everybody that's watching and that's participating today. So the first topic that Aaron asked me to talk about today, and so did Tiffany, was talking a little bit about your culture in your business. And so to me, it's super important. To me, this is part of your foundation of your organization. Whether you're a solopreneur and you're hiring your first employee or team member, or you've already got 10 or 15 or 20 or 100 employees, if you don't have good culture, you're breaking in that foundation. Your house foundation is starting to crumble. There are cracks that are there. And so to me, having that really put in place is going to solidify your organization and help you grow your business up on a strong foundation so you can build a good house or a good apartment building or a good structure. So with that being said, I'm going to cover a couple things today when it comes to your organizational culture and your foundation. And to me, one of the big topics that I get asked a lot about, and our practice and what we do, is around core values or company values. What are they? Why are they important? How do I go ahead and structure something like this if I've never had anything put in place? So I'm going to share some slides with you as we talk through this and just try to give you some basic blueprints here on how to develop your core values. And that's one thing, people get hung up on, and are they perfect? The answer is probably not right away, and that's okay. Put something on paper, get something out there. It's very similar to like if you set goals and objectives for yourself or for your team. If you don't have it on paper, it's hard to quantify it and kind of vision and see what your potential is. And then it's hard to see where you're going. What's your vision? And so we'll talk about that here in the beginning. And then we'll get into talking about 1099 independent contractors versus W-2 employees or team members. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to go ahead and present. If you give me a second here.
And then for anybody that's watching this live, if you guys have any questions,
slides are uploading here
throughout the presentation of what Scott's going to talk about, feel free to drop them in, and I'll come up and make sure that we can do like a live Q&A at the very end, or answer the questions throughout as well. So if you guys have any questions for Scott specifically, just make sure you guys drop them in the chat.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. Yeah, I want this to be interactive. You don't want to hear me preaching the whole time. That's no fun, especially an HR person. So, but with this, if you have pen and paper, or you're watching the recording, or you're watching it live, like you can take some notes, you can take screenshots of the stuff, or watch the recording again. With this, I want to try to give you some kind of foundational blueprints here, what's going on. So, all right. So the first thing here, again, I call this business foundation, part of our organization. So you can call them a couple things. You can call them company values. You can call them core values. You can call them guiding principles, whatever is easiest for you in your organization. When I lead this exercise with HR and business consulting clients, we'll do this as a team. So if you have more than one team member, you may want to show them this presentation, get them involved. People, like when you talk about culture, they don't want to be talked at, they want to be talked with, right? They want to be a part of the solution. They want to be empowered to make decisions. So I've worked for some very large organizations. I worked for a private equity firm as a VP of HR before I started Fortitude HR Solutions about 3.5 years ago. And prior to that, I worked internationally in HR. And again, I will tell you the most successful teams that I built were always making sure that they were included in the decisions, that I empowered them to make decisions, that we did a lot of collaboration. We were really focused on, the results and making sure we held each other accountable. But one of those big pieces of building that high performing team for us and the companies I worked for was having these core values or company values really defined. So what are company values or core values? Quite simply, like you see on the slides here, is how we do what we do. So this should give us a definition or like a guideline of how we're going to operate in our business day to day. The next bullet point that you see there is how we respond in business situations. Rather than having like this, general rule that this is how we handle a certain, customer situation, or this is what happens when we have this type of a product issue, we'd rather have something that's defined that kind of gives us kind of like a compass for how we're going to go from point A to point B to resolve a situation. So it should give us some ways of how we respond in business situations. It also should do the same thing as you see the third bullet point there. How do we conduct ourselves in business? For example, a lot of company values or core values that I hear from clients, they're going to have something in there about integrity. We want to operate with integrity. What we do, what we say is what we're going to do. We don't want it to be just, a lip service. We want it to actually be lived out. So with that, we hear a lot about that when we look at our company values or our core values. These values also will help unite our employees or our team members and our brand. As we're doing hiring, when we hire new employees or new team members, especially W-2, I always want to go through, and I know Josh and Tiff talk about this, and I'm sure Aaron and all the coaches do as well with results driven. But when you're hiring people, hire based upon values. So one of the things for us in our organization, even at Fortitude HR Solutions, one of ours is about teamwork. And so when I interview candidates that potentially will join our team, I want to understand how they lived out teamwork in their prior work experience. Give me some specific examples. I don't want to ask them a generic question of yes or no. Can you be a team player? Are you good with teamwork? They're always going to say yes. No one's going to say no to you, right? But I want to hear specific examples of how they live out teamwork. Give me an example where there was a chaotic situation in the workplace. Everybody was like stressed out super majorly. And then we had to figure out how we're going to come up with a solution and try to calm down whatever problem is that we had going on in the organization. Maybe we were behind on production. Maybe we had, a quality issue, whatever that is. But they should help us, again, our employees and our team members. They should kind of be an extension of us as owners of the business. We want them to live and breathe kind of what our values are and what we stand for as an organization. The other thing here, the fifth bullet point here, deeply held beliefs about the right way to do things and how we act. Think about like the golden rule. We want to, as our business, we want to treat other people and treat, it could be, again, a W-2 employee. It could be, an independent contractor. It could be vendors. It could be customers. We want to treat them the way that we want to be treated. We don't want to talk down to people. Again, like your values, again, are part of who you are as an organization. It's very similar. If you have core values for yourself as an individual, stuff that you believe in, maybe your moral compass, it's very similar to a business. So really making sure that we define these things is going to be super important when you look at your organizational culture and how we're going to operate just in general in day-to-day business. And then the last thing here, I think this is probably the most important point for me, is they have to be based upon real life actions of the company. They can't just be lip service. You can't come up with your values like integrity, teamwork, continuous improvement, throw them on the wall and say, okay, this is what we're all about. Well, that's great. But let's say you put on there, teamwork is a core value, but everybody in your business operates in silos. Nobody helps each other out. Everybody's very, concerned about just me, instead of the we. That's not going to be a good sign for your organization and team. So we want to make sure that they're based upon real life actions of the company. There are several ways that you can do this. Number one, how you implement these values is super important. So once you create your core values, you can go ahead, you can put them in, conference rooms, you can put them on your website, you can put them on social media and talk about one of your core values or company values and why they're important. during your huddle meetings, hopefully you're doing daily huddle meetings. I love these, super important. But with this, I know like Josh and Tiff, their team, they talk a lot about like gratitude, which is awesome. So share something about gratitude, but then get into how did somebody on the team maybe live out a core value from the day prior? And if it's too much for you to do daily, then do at least once a week during your weekly leadership meeting. And again, this could be people that are in the United States as W-2 employees. It could be, virtual assistants, virtual professionals. They're still part of your team, even though they're classified as an independent contractor. But make sure they're based upon real life of the organizations and how you act. One of my mentors, when I first graduated college, I worked for a bank here locally in Cleveland, Ohio. And he had said, Scott, every time I walk down the hall, if I see a piece of paper, I'm going to pick it up. And that was something that still stood to me to this day. And that's been, 1997. It's been almost 25 years now, almost 26 years coming up here in May. And so with that, to me, like, it just shows that no matter how high of a level of success I reach or whatever level of position I hold within the organization, I'm not going to be afraid to do the little things. And so like when I grew up in the corporate world, even when I was a director of HR for the Americas region in a large organization that did $2.1 billion, I would go up and I would clean toilets. So I wanted to be like, I'm like this untouchable person. I want to be a part of the team. And so like doing things that maybe get us outside our comfort zone, there's an argument there where, that's not part of my job, or there's an argument there, well, it's not the highest and best use of my time. But you know what, guess what? Like when I cleaned a toilet when the maintenance team wasn't available because they were out fixing machines or doing something else important, I got the buy-in and the respect of everybody on the team. So if I ever asked anybody in maintenance to do something, they would drop everything and they would help me out. So again, like it's kind of self-serving, but at the end of the day, it's something I believe in trying to help people. That's why I work in human resources. So again, I'm belaboring the point here, but I'm going over it too much, but make sure that if you have company values or core values, that they're actionable and that you live them out each day. All right, so the next slide here talks about why our company value is important. I probably talked a little bit too much, so some of these are going to be a little bit overlap, and I'm going to cover these pretty quickly. They should be an essential guiding force as your company grows. So again, as you're hiring team members, that should be part of the discussion. Again, it should be part of your culture. Josh and Tiff have an amazing culture at Heels Homes and Results Driven. They do a great job of engaging the team members. They do team activities. And those team activities I recommend with clients doing at least once a month or once a quarter at a minimum. They could be things like going out and, throwing axes, at an axe place. You could do bowling. You could do a service project. Go help out like at a soup kitchen, whatever those things are. But get your team involved. Get them doing something besides, just focusing on the numbers. You want the team members to build a relationship with one another. That's super important. Not everybody's going to like everybody, but if everybody's got the same driven purpose and the same mission and what our values are and what our why is, then people feel good about it and they can overcome some of those other challenges that, they may not get along. For example, I'm in, Cleveland and someone else might be in Cincinnati. So I like the Cleveland Browns and they like the Cincinnati Bengals, whatever that is. That might be a difference of ours. But if we can work together because we have a common goal, we share the common values of the organization, that's going to allow us to really make sure that, we're unified as a team. So that should be an important, again, part of it as the company grows. I just talked about creating a common sense that everyone can identify with, again, that can support and get behind. As you're implementing these values, if you have one team member that is kind of like a company person and they kind of really believe in your vision and where you're going in as an organization, if you can get them to be like a change agent or a champion for your values, they're going to help spread the word for you to the other team members that you have in the organization. So that's something else that's an important little tip there. We've already talked about helping, the company hire the right people. We already talked about navigating through difficult decisions. I have some other clients that, for example, they say they're going to do things the right way on time every time. And so like if they've had like a leaky faucet in, an apartment or in a single family residential unit and they're holding it as a rental, rather than just put, some, duct tape around that leaky faucet or leaky pipe, they're going to go actually ahead and they're going to replace it. They're going to fix it so it doesn't leak. They don't want to have people coming back in. They want to fix it right and they want to take care of the client or the customer right away. Some people may, again, when they're building something, they may cheap out on the labor or they may not put something in the wall that's required, like some insulation, for example. And because of that, they may not build a quality product. So that, again, that defines you as an organization. I know everybody's trying to look for ways to save cost. That's super important. But to me, I would never save costs at the expense of a customer, right? Or at the quality of the work that we do, because our brand, again, of what we stand for is way too important. With company values, they can also help you hold your other team members accountable to commitments. So like in the organizations that I've worked for, even here at Fortitude HR Solutions, like our team knows our values, and our recruiting and sales manager holds our other recruiters accountable based upon our values and kind of what we're all about. They'll challenge one another, not in a disrespectful way. I'm sure there's arguments at times, but at the end of the day, like we want to help each other out. We want to build each other up. That's really important. But we can do that in a kind way and say, okay, like I noticed on this, it looks like you're having some trouble. Susie, how do I handle this? Maybe a little bit differently. Here's some ideas that I have, from Billy. And then you guys work together and come up with a solution. And then again, I already talked about this, assist you in fulfilling your purpose as an organization. Just like you may have your own why for why you got into business and started your organization, or maybe why you have a side business and you're working a W-2 and you're trying to get ready to quit that job. Know what your why is. And that should be really kind of defined in your mission or your value statement, and then also in your values that you have as an organization. All right, the next slide here. This just shows some examples of other companies and what they do. So Google and IKEA, those are two that I like to use. If you've ever built the custom furniture that comes with like really hard directions, that's IKEA, right? So those furniture pieces, they have some really good values. I like leadership by example. I like the accept and delegate responsibility. To me, I think those are really kind of powerful. But as you can see, IKEA's got like one or two words that kind of talks about their values. If you look at Google's values, they have more of phrases. So for example, great just isn't good enough for them, or you can make money without doing evil. That's another one that Google has. So these are just some examples of what Google and IKEA has. I will tell you, other clients and even us at Fortitude HR Solution, we have like a defining word or a phrase or a sentence that goes after each of our values. So for example, if ours is teamwork, we may have phrases or defining sentences that say, we're going to do whatever we can to build each other up. We support one another, and we make sure that the job gets done, by taking care of our customers. So, doing whatever it takes, kind of like the just do it kind of mindset that Nike has. And with your values, you can go that route. It really doesn't matter. But again, as we get into this exercise that I'm going to lead here on the next slide, as we go through it, there's going to be one question after another, and they're going to pile up on each other on purpose. You may want to, again, take a screenshot of the last question here on the next slide, or instead, maybe you just want to, again, watch the recording with your team. But with the values, again, other people also have like a slogan or a tagline. Again, you can create, shirts, you can create, different business cards. Like there's a athletic club called Lifetime Fitness. They give all their team members a little business card. It's got the values on it. And if anybody in that organization asks them what their values are and they don't know what they are, when that person asks them, they'll actually get sent home for the day. I have a friend that's a VP of operations for them, left them recently, and he said that's what their culture is all about. So it's so important to them that everybody's got to memorize and know the values. I'm not saying you have to do that, but I think it's important that people know what they are. The other thing you can do with the values too is you can create like an acronym. So I have a client that wanted to use the acronym GROWTH. So they have growth as their acronym, and the G stands for like greatness, R stands for resourcefulness, and then the O stands for, I think, operational excellence. W, I think, stood for winning. T was teamwork, and I can't remember what the W stood for right off the top of my head here. But then after each one of those words, after that acronym, there was a defining phrase of how they were going to live it out. So just some options here for you if you don't have these values put in place. All right, so you can see all these questions on here versus me doing them one by one. I would ask, again, if you have a pen and paper, to document these or type these things out. There's no right or wrong answers when you do this exercise for company or core values. Again, if you have a team or as you're doing this exercise, figure out, do you want it to be just, you doing it? I prefer it when I do this exercise. If you have team members, I want them involved, right? I want to hear their opinion, because they're part of our team, essentially. They're part of our makeup of our culture and how we operate our business. Excuse me. And so with that, I want them to be a part of the solution and coming up with these core values or company values. I would also ask them, do you want them to be called company values? Do you want them to be called core values? Do you want them to be called guiding principles? And so that's really, again, another team decision. And then I ask these 11 questions typically when I do this exercise with clients. And then with that, when you write down these things, every answer is going to kind of build upon each other. And for example, if you say quality only one time in these 11 answers, it's probably not an important value to you. If you have a team of people and you're going to do this exercise with them, maybe get out on like a whiteboard and start writing down all your answers to these questions. But with this, I think the important thing is like looking for synergies and things that are very similar in your answers. And so, for example, if we say teamwork is so important all the time, we would continue to circle teamwork. And so typically at the end of this exercise, after we answer these 11 questions and, we're on a whiteboard, I have each team member go up and they get to circle their 5 most important things that they saw on the board, right? And so we'll take those then and we kind of create the values based upon their feedback. So hopefully this is helpful. The first question we have here that we like to ask people is, what's important to us? So as a team, what's important to you? And so there are no right or wrong answers as we go through this exercise. The important thing is that we foster discussion, we foster that collaboration, that teamwork. And so it's not just us as the leaders. If you do have a team, don't be the first to answer. I know that sometimes, we have that desire to be the first to answer. I'd rather your team members answer first and then maybe, make sure that you're participating as well. If you have certain team members, if you're doing this as a group and they're not participating, maybe say, okay, Joe, what do you think? Or, what do you think, Rachel? Like, give me some input here. Like, I'd love to hear from you. That way it forces them to kind of collaborate and be a part of the exercise so they're not feeling like a silo. So what's important to us? In this question, I will hear several answers. I will hear teamwork. I will hear continuous improvement. It might be safety. It might be quality. It might be we want to make money. It might be, the client satisfaction, or we're problem solvers, or we're solution focused, or whatever it is. Again, there are no right or wrong answers. I usually, when I lead this exercise, I'll let this question number 1 go as long as it needs to go. We may list 50 or 60 different things. We may list 10. Usually when I lead it with a client, if we only have 10, like I'll give them some, things to consider. But with that, go through this first question and ask yourself, what's important to you? What's important to us as a team? What's important to your business? So that's the first question. The second question is, what brought us all together and continues to hold us together? So what brought us all together and continues to hold us together? So this might be the fact, again, like our shared goals, our shared purpose, where we're going, our shared why. And so it might be that. It might be that, like at Fortitude HR Solutions, we really want to help people. So that's a big part of our values and what we're all about. So helping other people, making a difference, making an impact. It could be, again, continuous improvement and making things, that were broken. We want to fix those things. Or it could be, again, the teamwork, the team camaraderie. I know, in Josh and Tiff's organization, there's a lot of people that know each other. And so there's that team camaraderie already. So looking at some of those things and understanding, again, what's important to your team. So again, what brought us all together and continues to hold us together? Another one that I hear with this question would be around client satisfaction or customer service, making sure we're providing, excellent service because we want repeat customers, or we want, good Google reviews or Facebook reviews, or we want people that, maybe tell their friends about us. That might be, again, if we own, a business selling real estate for, residential, like fix and flips, or if we're doing wholesaling, we might talk to Aunt Judy and or Uncle Billy, and they've got another house that they know about that one of their friends has. We might pick up a referral just because of that, the way that we treated somebody. So that's an important element too of these values. And people don't think about that, especially as you're putting all this stuff together. But all this little stuff, it matters. And this is why, to me, it's very critical for your foundation, your business. It's very critical for how your organization is going to run and what your culture looks like in the business. The third question here is, what will help guide us when we're faced with difficult decisions? So what will help guide us when we're faced with difficult decisions? And so here I hear a lot about integrity. I hear about doing the right thing, which is very similar to integrity. I'll hear about, again, like the quality of the work that we do. We want to make sure that we do it right on time, every time. I hear a lot about like safety. I hear a lot about, again, like the teamwork and like communication. And so just anything, again, problem solving. Those are some kind of buzzwords I hear when we do this question. I also may hear like continuous improvement. I know Josh and I talk about, 1% better, kind of thing, that continuous improvement mindset. Or like in the private equity firm that I worked at, we talked a lot about operational excellence. And again, the commitment to continuous improvement and the commitment to, always getting better. Even if we fail, we always move forward, those kind of things. So then the fourth question, what are the things that you like about what we do at our company and how we do them? So what are the things you like about what we do at our company and how we do them? So again, you might be proud that, in your organization, you're helping people and you're solving problems for them, or the fact that, you're resourceful and that you can independently think, you don't have micromanagement, that you work autonomously. Again, it could be around, again, just the teamwork, the team camaraderie. It could be around, growth. You're really excited about the growth that you have in the organization. So there's a lot of different ways that you can, again, answer that question. Again, there are no wrong answers. And even when I do this exercise with clients, like, I want them to repeat words. If they like the word quality, I want it to be in their values, right? These are your values. They're not Scott Hanis's values at Fortitude HR Solution. So I want to make sure that the team, again, is participating in this exercise with us. Okay, number 5 here is, what parts of our company are we proud of? So what parts of our company are we proud of, or are you proud of? So write down those things. Again, it could be that it could be again about growth. It could be again about the continuous improvement. It could be about the fact that we get to help people. It could be about the fact that we made a ton of money last year. It could be the fact that, as a business owner, like, one of the things for me is that I get to hire people that are part of our team. And like, I'm responsible for making sure that, that their families are taken care of, right, financially. So, they do their job, and then I make sure that, they're paid and they're able to hopefully, do the things that they want to do, take the vacations that they want to take. So those are things that, are important to us. Again, the integrity. Another thing that's, one of our core values or company values is faith. That's something that we're, really, happy about. We actually do a lot of work charitably with faith-based organizations and giving back to schools and churches. And we do some pro bono or free work with schools and churches. So those are things that we're proud of. And we're proud, at Fortitude HR Solutions, that we make a difference. Even on the recruiting side, when we hire an employee or a team member, because we only do work on W-2 searches for clients, but we're helping that employer find somebody that can help them grow their business, make them more money. But we're also helping that employer or team member, again, take care of their family. So that's something that we're super excited about. And then on the consulting side, I love helping people, again, grow, right? And so I have clients that did $1 million one year, and the next year they're doing $2.5 million, and the next year they're at $5 million, and they have this trajectory. And it's, money's great, but what can you do with the money, right? And Tony Robbins talks a lot about this. Like, you can be the most successful person in the world, but if you don't have purpose and you don't know your moral compass and your values, like, you may not be happy, right? Or you may not be, fulfilled as a person. And so kind of understanding what, makes you tick and what makes your organization tick, I think, is super important. All right. So then number 6 here, is this something that we're willing to hire on? Is this something that we're willing to hire on? And if you're doing this or your team's doing this and they say no, you got a problem, in my opinion. So everybody should say yes to this question. This is something that you should be willing to hire upon as far as these values that you're creating. You don't want to say no. Like, again, they should be part of your hiring process when you're doing interviews. So that to me is a very simple question. Question 7 here, is this something, I'm sorry, that's number 6. Number 7 is, what does our team do? As a team, we do what? And this is where we'll identify what our business does. So again, at Fortitude HR Solutions, we do HR business consulting, we do recruiting. That's part of what we do. At your business, you might be doing wholesaling, you might be doing fix and flips, you might be doing short-term or long-term rentals, et cetera. Whatever that is that you're in for the business, you should define what your team does. You might talk again about, as a team, we help solve problems from for our wholesale clients, because again, you might be dealing with people that, have a probate issue, or they're going through a bankruptcy, or maybe they just lost a loved one, and you're able to help them out during those difficult times and kind of be a light in the darkness. And yeah, there's a way to make money from that. But again, that family member or that, person, they don't need to go through all the hard work of finding a realtor and paying that, realtor agent fee. They can just work with you and do the wholesale of the property. So there are some things, again, like, you got to think about that goes into your values about, again, your purpose and your why and what you're all about and what you stand for as an organization. So what does our team do? And as a team, we do what? This question usually will help define kind of our mission statement or our value statement and kind of what we do. So that's why I throw that question in there as part of this exercise. The next question is, what unique twist do we bring to doing this? So what's our unique twist that we do, that we bring to doing this? We're the only team that does what? Think about this question as your competitive advantage. Maybe, your organization has like an operating principle where you get back to everybody and there's no voicemails within, I don't know, 2 hours or whatever that is. But that could be a competitive advantage because people are going to be able to get a hold of you quickly. Maybe one of your competitive advantages is that you're the only one that serves in like Columbus, Ohio in that marketplace. And I know that's not the case, but I'm just throwing it out there. So know your competitive advantage. Know the fact that, you might be the only team that offers, a referral, fee for anybody that refers, other clients to you that have already sold you their home through the wholesale process. Maybe you have some type of, bonus structure for your independent contractors that help with your construction on the fix and flip side, where, if it's on time and it's on budget, you give them an extra, a referral fee or not a referral fee, like a payment because they hit their scope of work deadline and the quality of workmanship was good. So like figure out what your competitive advantage is. What makes you unique as an organization? That's really important. The next question here is, what are your team's superpowers? Think about, like Superwoman or Spider-Man or, Batwoman or, whatever, Batman, whatever. Like think about like these superheroes that we look up to or that maybe we watched when we were, children. What are our superpowers as a team? Aaron was on here, to get this meeting started. Aaron's got different superpowers than Josh has and vice versa. So know what your team's superpowers are. How do they complement and offer things to not only to your team members and then also to your clients? There's a great book out there and a great assessment called Strength Finders. And you can kind of figure out what everybody's strengths are and what they're really good at and how do you apply that in the workplace. So know your superpowers, maybe know again, and that's individually, but as a team, know that collectively, we have 40 years of real estate experience on our team. Or another superpower might be that, that again, we're committed to solving problems, or, we're resourceful. We come up with answers to things when nobody else can come up with an answer to, a certain situation or scenario that you're dealing with. So know your team's superpowers and make sure that, you utilize your team's strengths. That's the point of the comment with the Strength Finders. The next question here, what are the traits that help someone succeed on our team? So what are the traits that help someone succeed on our team? These could be things like, working hard or having a good work ethic or being a great communicator or somebody that is willing to listen, somebody that's open to coaching. That's something I see where people will hire people and they don't ask about, are you open to coaching? And this is why, because not everybody's going to have real estate investment experience, especially if you're hiring like a sales acquisitions, team member. They probably have not done sales acquisitions for another company. So you're going to have to teach them how to do this. And so you want someone that's trainable, that's coachable. So that should be something that, you kind of identify. Maybe again, you want someone that's resourceful or somebody that, is not afraid of, getting their hands dirty. That could be a trait. It could be somebody that's all about the continuous improvement or the client satisfaction mindset, or that somebody that's about growth and wants to do more and again, wants to, support other people. Those are all different traits that, can kind of go into your values. And then the last question, I like this question because again, as an organization, if as you build up your organization, you build up your business, what happens if in 5 years you want to sell the business or you want an exit strategy? You need to figure out what you kind of want to leave behind, as an organization. So this question talks about the world we leave behind will be what? So for me, like I know as a business at Fortitude HR Solutions, I'm very passionate. I help out. I do youth ministry. I work with teenagers in grades 9 through 12. And I've been doing that, it's for 18 years now. It'll be 19 years coming up in May. And very passionate about helping other people. And with that, one of the things at Fortitude HR Solutions, we want to build with company resources. We want to build a retreat center. And so for our youth that's here in the Cleveland, Ohio area. So that's important to me. And that's part of the legacy that I want to leave behind. That's very grand. It might be the world you leave behind. You may pick one local charity or nonprofit that you want to work with that, you're going to support. And so like at the private equity firm that I worked for, we got behind, instead of like a United Way or a Habitat for Humanity, we wanted to do something that was impactful in the community. And so we chose a company called the Two Foundation. The Two Foundation supports people with exceptionalities. The owner and founder has a son that has Down syndrome, and she was sick and tired of people putting labels or limits on what her son was able to accomplish. She doesn't use the word disability. She uses the word exceptionality. And I've adopted that into my vocabulary after I met her. She's a wonderful woman. And so was her son. They're just both incredible people. And so like when her son was growing up, she was told that he was never going to be able to, get his high school diploma, and he was never going to be able to drive a car, and he was never going to be able to, do any of these things. And she's like, that's not right. Like, so she started this Two Foundation. There's a side business that's attached to it called the Two Cafe. And they bring people in with exceptionalities, and they teach them on the job skills for how to do things in the workplace. And she's created such an amazing thing where, like Walgreens will hire people with exceptionalities to be a part of their team. Our company, the private equity firm, we hired people with exceptionalities to be a part of our team. And we got behind the Two Foundation, and we decided that was going to be our local, charity or the nonprofit that we supported. So we held golf outings for them. We did bake sales. We hired, again, team members to be a part of our team that we can mentor and help, get acclimated in the workplace. And some of these people were their first job, and some people were in their 40s and 50s and 60s, and they wanted to work and they wanted to do something. So we found something for them to do. And maybe you can't do that right now in your organization, and maybe that's not, the thing that you're passionate about. But again, figure out what you want to leave behind as an organization. What does your business again stand for? Again, do you want to leave a legacy? If you're, if you got kids, maybe you want to pass this business down to your children. Maybe you want to pick another nonprofit or a local charity in the community, and you want to support them. Again, we talked about earlier in this start of this discussion about, going to like a soup kitchen and giving back. These are things that are going to identify your values, but they're also going to identify your culture, how you give back. I have a client in Cleveland, Ohio here that owns a flooring store. And the two owners of this store, they're super involved in the community, and they support a lot of things like Toys for Tots, and they do food drives, and they do things with like the pet shelters, and they do things with other underserved children. And they pick a different like profit or nonprofit or a charity to work with every month, and they collect donations at their showroom, and they give back. And I know the two owners, they donate generously to these these charities as well. And so again, it gets a little bit self-serving as well, because, their name's attached to it, and they get a lot of, recognition in the community for all the work that they do. But know, again, like your company is just not about making money. There's a bigger purpose there, right? Whether it's you want to provide a better lifestyle for your family than what you had, whether it's you want to give back in some shape or form, whatever it is, know what the world is that you're going to leave behind. So hopefully that makes sense. But after you go through all these questions, now the big thing is, if you're doing it by yourself because you don't have a team, or if you're doing it with a team, ask them to circle what's important to them out of all the answers that you gave. Hopefully it was, 50 answers. And again, some of those might have repeated from question 2 to 5 to 7. That's okay. But know what's important to your organization and to your core group of people that went through this exercise. Does anybody have any questions on this before we kind of switch over and talk a little bit more about W-2 versus independent contractor? Hopefully this was helpful.
Yeah, this was super helpful, Scott. I think, at the end of the day, every single company I've ever worked for, very similar to you, like the values, they show in everybody's actions in the day to day. This is why this is super important whenever you get to, scaling out a team, or honestly, even having a conversation. It should, all your values should translate through the conversations of what you're having, whether it's, recognition, whether it's accountability, whatever it is. It's the pure fundamentals of your entire business whenever you start to bring people in. So I can't emphasize the importance of culture, values, like all those things. They just, it's, if you don't have it, you don't have anything. And then you're just going to have people that are acting in the day to day. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard Tiffany's story about how they originally built a business without those things. And then it came crashing down originally. And whenever the rebuild happened, that's where all these values came into play. And naturally it just attracts the right people that you want to be with. And I think, throughout even, the community, that I get the honor to manage, I see values can be, they don't have to be the same. They don't have to be, like what our values are, what Scott's values are. It's what you feel is right for your business.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, you're just going to attract the right people and then
Mhm.
retain the right people inside of your company. So, I think this is, once again, to me, it's the most powerful thing that we can talk about. And I really do believe it's once again, I'm saying it a million times, the foundation of
Mhm.
everything, to build upon inside the business. So,
That's great.
um,
Yeah, thank you. And you just like, and again, I love having discussions versus just presenting, because I think,
yeah.
there's things that like you just spurred in my mind, right? So like as business owners or leaders, there's a thing that I give two pieces of advice to business owners, and the number one is like you're gonna number one, what you permit as a business owner is what you promote. So if you don't have these things in place and there's chaos and people treat people the wrong way, or that just doesn't align with your culture or your values, then you're permitting the wrong type of culture in your business, right? But if you have this values that are defined and everybody lives them out and everybody's a part of them and they were part of creating them, then you're promoting a much better culture, right? At the end of the day. So that's the first thing I wanted to touch on. The second thing is like people are going to live up or they're going to live down to your expectations. And if you don't have clearly defined values, or you don't have a defined culture, or you don't do things to show appreciation to your team, eventually they're going to leave, right? Again, people, they don't quit typically their job, they quit their boss. You've heard that
Yep.
said a million times. But like doing little things like please, thank you, showing appreciation, writing a handwritten note, taking them out to lunch, buying lunch, giving them a gift card like, hey, you really crushed it this week. I really appreciate you. Thanks for, living out the values and going above and beyond. Like those are little things that add up. And you and I, Aaron, we may not appreciate it all the time because you and I think are similar. We're drivers. Like we just want to get stuff done. But at the same token, like a team is made up of a lot of different types of personalities, a lot of different types of people. I think you results driven. I think you guys like PI, predictive index.
Yep.
I personally like DISC a little bit better. That's again my preference. But knowing each person's strengths and what is their passion and how you can motivate somebody. And again, as a business owner or as a leader in your business, we need to find out how do they like to communicate, how do they like to learn, and we need to adapt to them, right? Like there's not one size fits all here, right? Like everybody's a little bit different. And that was one of the things that I've gotten to learn very well in my career is how to read people and how to understand when's the right time to talk about certain things and when maybe not to approach that.
Yep.
Like I know, for example, my boss Kevin, and I he worked with me for 5.5 years. One of my mentors, still one of my friends to this day. Like I knew, like when he had a certain look on his face, he had the worst poker face. Yeah, don't talk to him then, right?
Yep.
And then if I really needed to, I'd go in there and close the door and be like, all right, Kevin, you and I just need to have a conversation. I can tell you're in a really crappy mood and I need you to snap out of it because the team is seeing this and your emotions are letting, you're wearing them on your sleeve, right? And so we would have that conversation. I'd joke around with him. He'd joke around with me, and then he'd go out and he'd be, smiley, happy Kevin that he was. But that's hard to do, right? Especially if you're an employee or a team member and you have to coach up to your owner or to your manager or to your boss. That's not always easy, but you got to build the relationship. And again, having these values that people can identify with that bring us together can help build relationships, which again is part of your culture. So sorry, I went off on a tangent.
No, you're good. I love it. All right. So let's kind of transition because I know that this is I know it's not like a quick topic, but I think we have like 15 minutes left. So give me the Scott Hanis crash course on why W-2 versus 1099, because I get this question every single, like I feel like it's every single day, every day.
Yeah, no. And you're going to hear that one. You also probably hear, do I hire them as salary exempt or salary non-exempt? That's a whole other question, but you got to be W-2 employees first. So in my opinion, okay, I see a lot of small business owners that want to hire people as independent contractors. To me, if you start dictating that they need to work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, you already violated one of the IRS rules of somebody that should be a W-2 team member, right? Once you start dictating what hours they work, what they, their focus needs to be, they're not acting as like an independent a W-2 employee. They act as an independent contractor. I'm sorry, vice versa. They act as a W-2 employee because you're giving them direction, right? Versus an independent contractor is someone who typically they have their own LLC if they're doing it the right way. They have their own certificate of insurance, and they typically own their own business, right? And besides working just for you, they work for multiple other clients or companies. Okay. So like Fortitude HR Solutions, we are a consulting firm that works on behalf of other clients, and we're an independent contractor, right? We have our own business insurance, we have our own certificate of insurance, all that stuff. And we are not dictated by, if you sent me something, Aaron, today, like right now, I don't have to get it done right now. Like I have other clients, other responsibilities. I still do within like 24 hours. You know how I operate. I always will follow up. That's just my kind of my moral compass and code, but not everybody works like that. And so I like W-2 team members for a lot of reasons. Number one, they're more expensive. So that's not maybe the best reason, but you have to have certain things set up with W-2 team members. You have to have unemployment insurance and workers' compensation. You have to make sure you're doing FICA, which is Social Security and Medicare. So they are a little bit more costly. And then most people as W-2 team members are going to want to have some type of benefits. It doesn't have to be medical, dental, and vision if it's your first employee, but you're going to have to make sure you offer paid time off and paid holidays. So depending upon which state you operate in and which workers' comp classification code someone falls in, it might be another 10 to 20% on top of what you would pay an independent contractor per hour, for example. Okay. So they are more expensive. But what I love about W-2 employees is here's this. They're part of my team. They're fully committed. Typically, they don't have 20 other clients that they're working with. Number three, I love W-2 people because like I can have a daily huddle meeting. We can go over everything. We can do weekly leadership meetings. I can hold them accountable to the results. If things aren't getting done, to me, it's not in their like independent contractor agreement where the scope of work is. I can do more checkpoints. I can refocus their priorities. I can get buy-in from them a little bit easier. Again, I can show them the growth trajectory of the business and kind of where we're going. I can talk about opportunities where they can grow with the company. I also like it just because like if there's performance issues, I can have a coaching session. I can, if I have to do a verbal warning, a written warning, I put them on a performance improvement plan. I mean, it takes a little bit longer if you have to terminate somebody, but typically W-2 team members for me, in my experience, they're more dedicated, they're more committed, and they're more loyal to your business. So very, very simply, that's why I like W-2 team members. The other thing is really the compliance aspect. I want to make sure I'm doing the right thing as a business. I don't want the IRS coming after me for back wages or back taxes. Same thing, I don't want the Fair Labor Standards Act to come into play where the U.S. Department of Labor is coming after me because I've incorrectly coded my employee and they're really a W-2 employee and they're not an independent contractor. So that's, very high level, but that's why I like W-2 team members. The other thing is, like if I need them, for example, and I know we do this, Aaron, in our offer letters, we'll say, okay, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. is our hours, but we need you to be available in the evenings and weekends as required, right? Like results driven, we do, training sessions. We need our team to be on, hand for those training sessions. So with that, like an independent contractor, not necessarily. Like independent contractor typically gets like a set of things or duties they need to get done or a project, but they can do it whatever hours they want to do it in, right? So it's a very big difference. You really can't require them to be at your event unless they're an independent contractor that is like operating for you as like a sales agent and they are just there for that event, then it's a little bit different, right? But again, I still want that independent contractor to have an independent contractor agreement. I want them to have a certificate of insurance and make sure just like with W-2 team members, I'm a big believer in doing background checks and I do drug screens, right? And some people are like, oh, Scott, like no one's going to pass a drug screen, because marijuana might be illegal in my state. Well, guess what? Marijuana is still federally illegal. So you can still not hire somebody if they test positive for marijuana. And this gets into a bigger discussion there, and I can go off on a huge tangent on it. But those are like the basics of a W-2 team member. Independent contractors I see used in smaller businesses when it comes to like a construction person, that might be managing the renovations. But then again, I want them to have their own business. I typically want to see their own LLC. I want them to have an independent contractor agreement. When are we going to pay them? What's the scope of the work? And I want to be able to manage that scope of work. So I'm managing to the scope of work or to that project. I'm not managing the employee or the team member. Does that make sense?
100%.
Yeah. And then when you get, I'm sorry, go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah. I've kind of seen a limiting belief around, 1099 employees. You're going to attract a higher talent pool with 1099. Actually, I believe the opposite. I think about a lot of people that even we've hired at Results Driven, that if we didn't have, like certain benefits, like I know, for instance, I'll use Bo as an example. If we didn't have medical insurance, we wouldn't have Bo as an employee.
Yep.
If we didn't have the stable income, a lot of people wouldn't do that. And I think there's a limiting belief around sales specifically in the real estate industry that we're going to attract a very high level skill setted person. But my argument always to the 1099 is that I think from day one you're teaching them to be an entrepreneur. You're training essentially your competition at one point, whether it's the way they're paying taxes, whether it's the way that they're getting paid. You're naturally just training them to become the next entrepreneur. And then your retention and like everything in your business is going to come crumbling down when you have that absence and that void of that person. So I think it's huge.
Super, super important points you just said there. Super important, because in addition to that, like when you go to hire maybe it's your first salesperson, when you hire a W-2, people are going to be more likely to take a W-2 full-time job than they would be an independent contractor job. We recruit for companies all across the United States. I will tell you, we don't even work on 1099 searches anymore. All we do is W-2 full-time employee searches, because most people don't want to be a 1099. They want to be W-2 because, again, if you're a W-2 employee, the company's paying into Social Security for you. You as the employee pay into Social Security. So you have Social Security that's building up. It may or may not be around. That's a whole other subject. But as an independent contractor, nothing is paid into that, right? The other point that you said, Aaron, that I want to bring up. So there's some crazy laws that are being proposed right now. There's one that's being proposed by the Federal Trade Commission where they may outlaw all non-competes. This came out in the beginning of January. It's right now for public commenting. And with that, if that happens, even if you have because like independent contractors, you might have as a non-compete. Sometimes employees, we don't want to have that language in there because they might be scared to join our team. But there may be a time where non-competes are considered illegal, right? It depends on, and I'm not trying to get political, but it depends upon the administration and what's important to them. And right now, that's something that the Federal Trade Commission has under consideration. They've got proposed language out there that may go into effect. It may not. I don't know. But these are things that are always happening in the background from like a legalese standpoint. So we got to understand the risk. And so what you said, Aaron, is super, super important, right? Like when they're independent contractors, they're already set up to be like on their own, right? It's their business at the end of the day. So they may say, you know what, Aaron, it was great working with you. It was great working with you, Scott, but I'm gone, right? I'm going out the door, right? And so normally there's a little, again, more of a commitment. Normally, again, like if you treat somebody really well, they're not leaving your business, right? If you treat them well, you pay them well, you show them opportunity for growth, you talk to them. Like I'm a super big believer in, again, the daily huddle meetings, the weekly leadership meetings. You can call it traction, whatever you want to call it. I've never done traction. I've read the book, but I've done it like through the corporate thing with a $2 billion company. So it's a little bit different. But then I'm a big believer. I know like Josh, I think, and Tiff and you, Aaron, I think you guys do like weekly meetings with your team individually, one-on-one. If you don't do weekly one-on-ones, because it can be very time consuming, do at least once a month where you sit down with your team member. You go over what do they do really well? What do they need to improve upon? Then getting into, how are they tracking towards their goals and objectives that maybe you outlined, or your rocks or your priorities, whatever system you use. Same thing with your KPIs. And then what do you need from me as your leader, right? Like what can I do to support you? When they're 1099, you're probably not having that conversation. It's very much a different conversation, or at least it probably should be, right? Because when you start doing those one-on-one meetings and do those things, you really are treating them like an employee versus a 1099, right? And so there's certain things. There is an IRS like test where I think there's 51 questions where you can determine whether they're an independent contractor or a W-2 employee. Another thing, like let's say you have a person on your team that you coded as an independent contractor, but you're providing them with their laptop, you're giving them a cell phone, you're giving them, a credit card to reimburse them for expenses. They're really a W-2 employee from those things as well, right? Or if they're making decisions on behalf of the company. I mean, there's all these different rules and regulations that come into play. And I want to try not to get too technical into it. But to me, like I'm very much like you are, Aaron and Josh and Tiff. I want to build my team with W-2 team members. I want people that are ready to grow with Fortitude HR Solutions, not that are ready to either work in a silo by themselves. Like I want them to be a part of the team, right? And I wanted them to be able to grow with us versus an independent contractor. They may want to do their own thing. They may want to start another business. They may want to say goodbye. Like it's very easy both ways for the independent contractor to leave by themselves, or for you as a company to let them go. But again, what I see a big misconception too, Aaron, where people don't have like, and I know we do this at Results Driven at Heels Homes, like on W-2 employees, you got to have offer letters. So you document kind of what the employment is going to be for that, employee. And then there's all kinds of new hire paperwork. So if you're hiring your first W-2 team member or you're transitioning people, make sure you have all your new hire paperwork. I think Josh and Tiff use everything that I give the whole Heels Homes, the results driven. So that's there for you to utilize. But then also like talk to your accountant, your CPA. If you have a payroll provider, you can use Gusto. Mine that I like the best out of everyone is called Paylocity. Utilize a resource. They can help you process payroll. But with that, make sure all your unemployment, your workers' comp is set up. Make sure when you have W-2 employees, you're paying your quarterly taxes under a 941. Your payroll provider will help you with those things. You don't need to go this alone, right? But make sure you have those things. And then when you hire that W-2 employee, Aaron, make sure you're giving them their goals and objectives. What are their KPIs? Give them a good onboarding experience. I will tell you that's where a lot of employers, organizations, they fail. They don't give good onboarding experiences. So what happens is somebody, joins the team. They maybe do like a day intro and they throw them to the wolves. I know you guys don't do that at Heels Homes or Results Driven, but I'll tell you a lot of clients do. And then they wonder why the person quits after 4 days or 5 days or a week, right? Or a month, whatever. So making sure that you give them a good onboarding experience, get them exposed to other people on the team. Again, this is another advantage of a W-2 team member. I can have, Aaron sit down with, Sally and vice versa. And every single team member, they can start building relationships. And then, they know who to go to if they need something or if they need some additional help. And Aaron, if you're the person's boss or manager and you're not available, they can go to Bo or they can go to Steven or whoever, and they have backup support. So that's, again, the advantage of a W-2 team member. You get the entire team, whereas with the independent contractor, usually you get one person.
Perfect.
Sorry, I went off on a tangent again.
No, you're good. You are good. All right, Scott. Well, I appreciate, you hopping in and you dropping a lot of, gems, honestly, today. I think, the biggest takeaways is, everything is once again driven through culture. That's going to be the fundamentals of everything. And then how you bring them into the company, the way you structure their employment agreements, all those things are really important. I think, one thing that we strive here at Results Driven is we want to structure everybody's companies to be actual companies. And it's hard to grow out your organization whenever you have everybody acting as independent contractors. Do I think it can work in some capacity? 100%. But I think whenever you get to the point of where you want to, you want to grow and you want to build this thing out so that you can get to, pinnacle phase, what everybody's striving to get towards, you have to have the right people in the right positions with the right employment, to support it. So, Scott, I can't thank you enough for, hopping in today. And if anybody has any questions around anything we covered, you guys are more than welcome to, reach out to me directly, reach out to, Josh, Tiff, any of the coaches, drop something in the Facebook community. Any support that you guys need, or you have like a difficult employee around, hey, maybe we want to move this person from, 1099 to W-2. We're here to help you guys out through any of those types of situations. To get you guys, moving in the right direction. So, Scott, I appreciate you joining us today. And then if anybody has anything, moving forward, just reach out to me on Instagram, Facebook, shoot me a text, call me, whatever you guys need. We're here to support you in any way we can.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, Aaron. And one last final comment on what you just said. As you're building a team, when you build with W-2 team members, typically, again, the long-term growth is going to be there. And then if you're offering benefits, medical, dental, vision, like you just mentioned, Bo, like people want to have those benefits. Like that becomes a competitive advantage for your organization. So it makes it easier to attract the rock stars or the A players or whatever you want to call them, because they're not going to come join an organization when there's no benefits, right? And as an independent contractor, they're not getting anything. They're not getting paid time off. They're not getting paid holidays. As a W-2 employee, they're getting paid time off, paid holidays. They might get, some type of work bonuses. They might get different things like the medical, dental, vision. You might have retirement. So they get more what familiarity that they have, maybe working for like a Bank of America, for example. So again, those things become super important as you're building. So Aaron, I can't thank you enough. Thank you to the community. And if there's any questions for me, just feel free to let me know and I'm happy to help support.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Take it easy. We'll see you guys on here next time.